the loneliness of this one's wife. They just don't get it. The most important aspect of my work about this one's wife is it enables you to understand why she behaves as she does. Many people don't understand it. They repeatedly wonder, is she not aware that she's so disliked? Why doesn't she respond to that? Why doesn't she change her ways? Why doesn't she actually deliver on the things that she says she's going to do? Does she not see that she plays the victim regularly? Does she not see that she makes Harry's life a misery? Does she not see that it's unfair in the way that she's treated her father after everything he's done for her? Why does she show such favouritism towards her mother as a consequence of the fact that her mother was out of her life for a number of years? All of those questions are answered by understanding her narcissism. You understand her narcissism, you're able to address all of those questions. And that is why I have such an extensive series in relation to this one's wife, because there is such a level of interest in her, what she says, what she does, what she looks like, her interaction with other people. But each and every time I am able to unravel all of that for you by reference to her narcissism. I'm able to explain to you why she treats Harry in the way that she does, why Harry still remains in the relationship, why she's treated her father in the way that she has, why she regards the Princess of Wales as the nemesis. And now I'm going to provide you with an example of an individual who's written repeatedly about this one's wife and isn't necessarily a huge fan of her, but simply doesn't grasp why she behaves as she does, and causes her to believe that she's in a particular place. The relevant individual is Daniela Elser, writing in news.com.au. She writes as follows. The Christmas Advent calendars have arrived and a panettone has started popping up in tottering towers and Woolies and Coles. It's that time of year again, people. Because when the festive season, all instrumental jinglings and red polyester ribbons creeps up on us, so too does it mean that Crown season is here. This week, Netflix has released photos from what will be the final outing in creator Peter Morgan's sweeping royal melodrama. The new shots proving that for a multi-billion-dollar company, they still seem to be spending less on wigs than custard creams. The new season will close out the series, thus meaning we will never see what sort of fluorescent orange number that producers would force onto the head of whichever RADA graduate would end up playing current-day Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. The Crown might stop long before Harry ever sat down with a lager to watch Suits, but there is a very interesting through line from Elizabeth Debicki's Diana, Princess of Wales, to Harry's wife, the Duchess of Sussex. In fact, one of the photos would seem to lend credence to some of the Duchess's biggest claims. One of the shots out this week shows the Australian actress as the princess leaning on the rail of boyfriend Dodi Al-Fayed's father's super yacht, contemplatively, if not mournfully, looking out to sea in her cozies. It's an image that speaks of loneliness and the particular isolation that Diana dealt with during her 15 long years as a Windsor wife who refused to obediently stay in her prescribed box. Golly, who might that remind you of? Looking at this new Diana photo, all I can think is, in the intervening decades between the Princess of Wales's death and the arrival of this one's wife, and her yoga mat in the Kensington Palace forecourt, the institution seems to have learnt absolutely and utterly nothing. In fact, after a millennium plus of there being an English and later British monarchy, they still have no idea what to do with difficult women. And by difficult, I mean that as a ringing compliment. Both Diana and this one's wife, unlike Kate, the Princess of Wales, married their princes after only relatively short relationships, and with scant idea of what they were in for, beyond getting notepaper with a royal cipher slapped all over it, and some vague notion of having to turn up for trooping the colour. Now, pausing there, what Elser fails to recognise is that the speed at which somebody gets married is often an indicator that an individual is trying to bring another individual under control. Those of you who are long-time viewers of my work know that the narcissist commonly, as part of the love bombing, looks to live with the other person, get engaged to them, be called boyfriend and girlfriend very quickly, and often get married very quickly. The victim thinks it's wonderful. This person is so into them that they want to engage in their nuptials with them. What they fail to realise is that this is invariably the hallmark of a narcissist. Not always, but usually, where the narcissist, driven by their narcissism, needs to bring that person under control as quickly as possible for the purposes of then embedding them as the intimate partner primary source. With Diana, it was done to her by Charles. For Harry, it was done to him by this one's wife. But again, Daniela Elser doesn't understand the dynamic that goes with narcissism. What awaited both women on the other side of their wedding vows, she continues, was a rude, blunt shock. They were expected to toe lines, wave on demand, and not challenge the status quo that had been in place since before the advent of the zipper. Ultimately, both women would defy the men in grey to chart their own courses, with messy, complicated consequences. The stories of Diana and this one's wife are about big dreams, big mistakes, intense personal and social dislocation, about navigating the psychological terrain of going from jubilant cheering crowds to cloistered solitary existence, about finding the line between bravery and ballsiness and ego-driven foolhardiness. However, where the two women part ways is that Diana spent years learning the rules of the game, so to speak, before striking out on her own and triggering mass Buckingham Palace conniptions. This one's wife, by contrast, seemed to bring with her a certain impatience, which, of course, is part of her sense of entitlement, to do things the way she saw fit, which, I would wager, did not exactly help the situation. There is probably a PhD-length essay in the merits and deficiencies of each approach, but the end result was the same. Both women, and in the Duchess's case her husband to boot, found themselves exiled from the royal universe. The same goes for Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, too. One thing that unites Diana, Fergie, and this one's wife, and I wonder about Kate and Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh also, is the loneliness that followed hot on the heels of them getting their HRH. Suddenly, as members of the House of Windsor, gone were their civilian normal lives, along with their identities, autonomy and agency, supplanted by the needs and priorities of a survive-at-all-costs institution. Reader, it generally has not ended well. Understand that this one's wife may well have doled out pity plays linked to the issue of loneliness. But in actual fact, it was about, because she felt that she wasn't supported, that of course is a subconscious threat to her control. Because she wasn't afforded the admiration that she believed she was entitled to, that threatened her sense of control. The fact is, this one's wife wasn't lonely. She may have played upon the concept of loneliness in order to draw pity plays, in order to control and draw fuel. But she would not have been lonely. The reason being, she had Harry. She had members of staff that she could interact with. Remember, she's not connected to these people in the way that non-narcissists are. She's not emotionally invested. And therefore, the concept of loneliness can and is used by narcissists in order to elicit sympathy, because it's used as a manipulative pity play. But the narcissist isn't actually lonely. Because in order to experience loneliness, the narcissist must be able to actively connect with other people. And of course, it is understood that if you follow my work, the narcissist never connects to anybody. We connect you to us, but we do not connect to you. Accordingly, once again, somebody who does not understand narcissism believes that she experienced, i.e. this one's wife, experienced loneliness. She did not. Elser continues by writing, "It's not as if the people at the eye of these various royal hurricanes haven't been telling us exactly this. Diana via Andrew Morton's Diana, Her True Story, Fergie with her autobiographies, and this one's wife when she sat down with Oprah Winfrey in March 2021 and essentially launched a nuke at the royal family." What I find deeply frustrating is that while on many levels the monarchy has shown itself to be an organism which possesses a certain Darwinian survival gene, when it comes to the women who marry into it, there seems an immovable unwillingness to make adjustments or tweaks to help them out. That comment doesn't necessarily sit, certainly with the case of this one's wife, who was allocated an entire staff and advice from Sophie and Camilla with regard to fitting in. Instead, the same dire pattern keeps repeating itself. Some energetic young gal who burns bright is in love with a prince, marries him, and then all that optimism and joy soon collides with pinstripe frigidity and rigidity, resulting in her suffering serious mental health woes. With that image of Debunking, as Diana really spells out, is that in all the time since the princess boarded the Al Fayed's Jonical, the palace has not grasped that they need to do more, much, much more, to help new royal brides to survive once they enter regal captivity. Now, that might be accurate when it comes to the non-narcissists that have married in, but it certainly isn't accurate when it comes to this one's wife. And the suggestion that she needed more help, that the palace ought to have done more, that she was essentially lonely and ostracised, is entirely incorrect and is demonstrative, once again, of a failure to understand that she is a narcissist and what that means. They just don't get it, but you do as a consequence of my work. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.